Well, good evening and welcome to our Wednesday night Bible study on biblical Christian ethics. We're talking about this point, the biblical foundation of marriage. Marriage is God's idea, not man's. And in recent decades here, we begin to see those who want ultimate forms of marriage and are presenting our ultimate forms of marriage, wanting those, desiring those, having those, which are contrary to God's plan. That really does spell some really serious difficulties that are going to be taking place in the world. It's all part of the end time experience when there's a falling away. And entire groups of people and families these days are actually separating themselves from the people of God. They don't want anything to do with the people of God. And all this is just a part of what God is doing that's going to lead up to the catching away of the church and the revelation of the Antichrist, who will solve the problem in the Middle East. Something that nobody's been able to do, but he will do it. And that'll jettison him to worldwide fame, and how quickly things will fall in line for the Antichrist to set up his kingdom. Well, back to biblical foundation of marriage. As we've been talking about it, we've been talking about the difficulties that can arise regarding marriage. Statistically, 5 out of 10 marriages end in divorce. 5 out of 10. That's 50% end in divorce. Yeah, but it doesn't stop there. Of the 5 which survive, 3 of the marriages do not attain the level of harmony and success that is desirable. So out of 10 marriages, you got 2 that have a harmonious relationship with each other. And that's certainly far away from what God intends marriage to be. It's God's intention of marriage is to be a fulfilling, and that both the husband and the wife find meaning and purpose in the marriage. And they find security and safety in marriage. They find joy and happiness in marriage. It is something that they are fulfilled in on many different levels. And these are things that are not happening these days. Yeah, most marriages fail most marriages fail to produce a godly, harmonious relationship between the partners. Most have failed to make the transition from the me to the thou. Well, these are 2 terms to use. The me here refers to selfishness. Maybe you've noticed today, it seems that people everywhere are becoming more self-centered. Life is all about them. Other people are secondary in their lives. They're primary. The thou here represents those who are considering others and prioritizing others rather than themselves. God has a very interesting way of setting up humanity. And very quickly, it began to fall apart. It is continuing to fall apart from generation to generation. And one of the negativities, as mentioned here, is selfishness. Individually, we begin to think about ourselves, only ourselves, primarily ourselves. God's plan is this: individually and corporately, in marriage, and even in a single state. God's plan is this: that each of us, in the circle of people that become a part of our lives, either by marriage, or through work, or friendships, whatever, these people, we are to use the opportunities of our association with them to help meet their needs, to fulfill them, to encourage them, to uplift them, to sustain them. And then you say, well, what's left over for me? Well, in a sin-cursed world, not much, if anything at all. But in God's perfect plan, all of these other people out there that we have been reaching out to, that was a part of our circle, they are reaching back to us and to others and others, and this goes so that the plan is we meet everybody else's needs, desires, help, sustain, support, uplift, and do all these things for others, and others are doing those same things to us. But because of the curse of sin, that's broken down. Because majority of people today are thinking about me. Number one, there are three people that are the closest to me. Me, myself, and I. Those are the three people who are closest. That's the way we function. And that's not God's plan at all. Successful marriage is the husband is going to desire to fulfill the wife. The wife is going to desire to fulfill the husband. And together, they will desire to fulfill their children and to teach their children that it's not all about them, but it's about other people that come into their lives. And it's a perfect working in a perfect state. And the interesting thing is, in a perfect eternity, that all of truly saved people are going to experience in the presence of the Lord is an environment of fullness of joy and pleasure forever. Because everybody is going to be fulfilled. All of us are going to be functioning in the very program that I just talked to you about. We're going to be looking out for everybody else. We're going to know everybody, all the saved people, ever how many millions or billions there may be. We're going to know them all by name. There'll be no strangers in heaven. We're all going to know one another. They're going to know us. Every one of them will know us, and we'll know every one of them. It's going to be a fantastic time. A church today is supposedly to be a microcosm of that very experience. God's people would desire to be assembled together with other of God's people. And together we are linked in everybody else's lives in love, support, encouragement, help. Nobody's in it by themselves. The closest generation of Christians to establish that on a practical working basis were the first, second, and third, and fourth generations of believers from the day of Pentecost. They came to the closest of fulfilling that. Many of them would actually die to protect another believer from those who were persecuting the church and wanting to kill Christians. It came down to that kind of a point. Today we've lost that. You know, many churches like ours have pews in the churches. Those pews, you notice, are not divided out in individual chairs or seats. There's a reason for that. The church is to be so close to everybody that you don't mind sitting next to whoever or whoever sitting next to you, because you're very much of a part of their life and they're very much a part of your life. Wow. Today, things are a lot different. We have individual seating in many churches. The breakdown of the family requires that. Divorce that comes into play requires that. And people have a whole host of different ideas, thoughts and ideas, and they don't want anybody to bother them. They're there for what they can get out of the service. They are not there for what they can put into the service. And churches across the world, and America particularly, are just simply dying because many times we're not thinking about others. So this principle here of the me and the thou destroys a marriage if it's all going to be about the me dynamic. It needs to be about thou. Husbands, love your wives. Wives, love your husbands. Respect each other. Cling to each other. Support each other. Encourage each other. Help each other. Have fun with each other. Just get connected and fill each other's needs, desires, and hopes, and dreams, and so on. Wow. Husband and wife have to pull together to make a marriage work. Just like two teams, either of horses or oxen or mules or whatever. They got to be paired together in the harness and work together to accomplish the goal of whatever they're harnessed together for. Pulling a plow, pulling a wagon, whatever. And in a marriage, the marriage works when husband and wives are working together to make it work. To fulfill each other and to fulfill their children. And to teach them the vital principles that we just mentioned to you. Wow. All right. They must be willing to overlook the other's faults. Principle number 1. In a sin-cursed world, there is nobody who is perfect. Nobody. Every last one of us have faults and failures and maladies in our very being. And only the redeemed of the Lord are going to overcome those. And ultimately, they will be all gone. But in this world, there's imperfection. Even among the most dedicated and committed Christians, they're still not perfect. So, in a marriage, is actually in this life the closest relationship that you will ever have if you are handling the marriage as God has intended it. Your marriage, the husband to the wife to the husband, is a closer relationship than you are, shocker, to your children. They are going to watch you as mom and dad, how you live as husband and wife, how things work out for you. That's what's going to happen to them. We teach them this whole business about the marriage relationship by example, seeing how it works. That's very vital. We're pulling together. They need to see that. Yeah. Overlook their faults. Pray earnestly for one another. Boy, that's a tough one to get people to do. But we do. We need to pray. Families need to pray. Husbands, wives need to pray. You can pray separately. You can pray together. You can do it sporadically. You can set time and location and place. All sorts of things. But pray for each other if you want the marriage to succeed. Every situation that you find in the marriage that seems to be difficult, hard, impossible, talk to the Lord about it. And always remember when we pray, we're not there to dictate to God. We are there to request. We're there to petition. We're there to pour our heart out of the situation as we see it and the way we feel. And after you've done all those type of things, then what you need to do then is to give it all to Him. And let Him know that you will be willing to accept whatever His will, plan, and purpose and answer to that prayer is. You will be amazed at the response that you get. Over time, you'll see things you'd say, how did that happen? Wow, look how God took care of this, and how much more He took care of it than what I ever asked for. It's because we yielded to Him. You know, we think success in this life is pulling everything together the way we want it, including our relationship with God, including our relationship with husbands and wives, including our relationship with children. When the reality is, we share with them. And then we ask of God, and then we talk to one another, involved in what we've talked about in prayer to the Lord, even on a private situation, and ask for His direction. And be willing, when you close your prayer, to honestly be willing to let God have His way, even if it's contrary to everything that you want. And say, that's dangerous. No, it isn't. That's safe. Because He will always give His best to us, particularly to those who yield to Him. Always remember, God knows everything about everything. Even in a constant changing, He knows all that too. He knows best how to put all the pieces together. We could tell Him what we want the pieces to be like. But let us surrender after we've told Him, and be willing to let Him do what He prefers to do, and go about our life, and we'll be amazed. I know I have what God does and can and will do. I have found Him to answer abundantly more than what I thought, knew, or could even ask. And that's true of all of us, because none of us are absolute in our thinking and our knowledge. Not by any imagination can we say that, hey, I know everything there is to know about this. We don't. We really don't. All right? Must overlook faults. Pray earnestly one for another. To make your marriage work, you must fulfill your scriptural role and go above and beyond what is required. Husbands, we need to be biblical husbands. And that's a big challenge today more than ever before. Wives, you need to be biblical wives. Again, that's an enormous challenge today. But God's love, mercy, and grace can help us do that which we don't think we could ever possibly do. We just have to yield to Him to do it. That is the most difficult thing there is, to yield your will to God. Lord, whatever you want, I'll be happy with. And make that your goal. in whatever situation that you're in. It's surprising. I know that the plan of it sounds like, hey, that just isn't going to work, that can't work, and so on. But start attempting in those areas, and you will be amazed. And we're talking about you must be a child of God, first of all. You must be a saved person. God works to accomplish His will best through His own people who are willing to love Him, trust Him, and obey Him. And when we make requests, we don't set an ultimatum to God. You better do this, God, or you may feel like that. You may feel disappointed and unhappy. Tell God that you're disappointed and unhappy about this, that, or the other thing. Pour it all out to Him. And having done that, then be willing. Then be willing to yield to His will. Wow. Each must give unselfishly, love unconditionally, and always be willing to forgive one another. 3 important dynamics there. Love is a choice. It is not an emotion that comes upon us and we fall in love and we have no control over it. That is not love. That is infatuation. Love is a choice. I choose to love you. God chose to love us. He chose to love the world. He chose to send His Son to die so that the world could, if they were willing, receive His Son and live. But the world doesn't want to do that. And only a few people ever do. And they do that by the grace of God as well. My. What we can really do if we would just think a little more about these things. All right. Must give unselfishly, love unconditionally, and always be willing to forgive one another. Each spouse must bite his or her tongue. Yeah. Don't speak hastily. Don't return evil for evil. Turn the other cheek. Exercise love. That's charity in the King James Version. And use the tongue only to edify, build up, encourage. Yeah. That is the important thing that we need to think about and do. Very important. All right? Now we want to look at keys to build a healthier marriage. Well, hey, my marriage is perfect. It doesn't need to be healthier. Well, I got bad news for you. No marriage is perfect, and the reason why no marriage is perfect because no one is perfect. You can't take 2 imperfect people and put them together and get a perfect marriage. So you can't do that. We all need together as husbands and wives grow and mature and have a healthier marriage than we have. A, recognize certain essential needs that each individual has. Every person has needs. Every person has desires. Every person has issues they need fixed in their life. We got to work, husbands and wives, with each other, facing those things. We all have needs. Needs need to be met. We all have wants. wants don't necessarily have to be met. If they are met, those are blessings. Those are an abundance of blessings. But needs are something that we all have in these areas that is pointed out here. All right? If your marriage is to prosper, we must see these needs. Your husband or wife has a need to be loved. That is a basic human need and is vital to a stable marriage. We're not talking about infatuation. We're talking about love. The wife needs love from her husband. The husband needs love, respect from his wife. We work together on this. We are encouragers of each other. And we always know that no matter what happens, I love you. I love you. We need to learn to say, I love you. We need to show our love by our actions and our deeds. A marriage is fantastic when both the husband and the wife feel, believe, and have no doubt that you're loved by their spouse. No doubt. Well, our time is gone.